This is Turn 1 Thoughtseize. I'm Ahren.
And I'm Zach.
And this is episode 91. Break-even challenge results, Pro Tour prep, and illness. I got sick on the plane. I think I'm...
It's no good, man.
Yeah, it's like con crud, right? Yeah, it could be from the airplane. It could be from my fellow gamers. Who knows? But... So, if you hear me coughing or whatever, I will try and edit it out. But if I miss any, that's why.
Fair.
All right, housekeeping. We have not had any new patrons since the last episode. If you are listening to this and you would like to join us on our Patreon, it's patreon.com/turn1thoughtseize. I don't know if that's actually correct. I am very tired. Patreon.com/turn1thoughteize, all spelled out. That is correct. You can, the merch store is still up. Thoughtseize.bigcartel.com. The first round of playmat pre-orders is closed as of today, actually. So I'm going to get the first batch underway and then take it from there. Check out our Decked Builder affiliate link at store.decked.builder.com/T, the number one Thoughtseize. We actually had a pretty good response to that, which I was very happy with because like I said, it is a tool that we both use. Otherwise we would not promote it. So definitely go check them out. I did a best Muppet poll on Twitter, and the Swedish Chef correctly won handily. Just FYI.
All right.
Look,
good to know.
He's the best Muppet. Not even it's him, Stadler and Waldorf, Bunsen Honeydew, honorable mention Beaker. End of list.
I like Kermit, man. I'm a big Kermit guy.
Wait, what do you play, Mario and Mario Brothers all the time? Are you a Super Smash Brothers Mario guy?
I just like Kermit. He's a relatable dude.
You have a lot of sad amphibian problems. So we are still going on with the split episodes. So this one's going to be in two parts. Make sure that you download both of them for maximum enjoyment. I am also, we did get a couple of requests for people who like the full episodes. I'm working on that. I think I probably will just end up doing a separate feed. So if people just want the full episodes, then they can subscribe to the other feed, and it shouldn't be an issue. So that, as they say, is that. SCG Charlotte was last weekend. Spoilers, I did not break even.
Yeah, I was going to say that I was not here for the last one, but curious how that went.
Not great. So I went there expecting dredge, so I made some changes to the main deck. Nothing huge, right? I played a Nile Spellbomb in the main, and I cut Tireless Tracker for... I played a Kitchen Finks in the main, a Nile Spellbomb, and... I cut the, that card. I cut the Inquisitions, and I ran all Thoughtseizes and, reworked the mana base. So it just had more green mana available for, scavenging use. So it was, it was a change, but it wasn't the game plan was still the same, right? Kill all your stuff, Thoughtseize your guys, play Bob, Liliana, etc. What I faced was Jund, round one, and I'd done very little actual prep for the mirror, and because I didn't think a lot of people were going to be playing it, and it's also a very difficult match. It's hard. It's hard. And so I won game 1, lost game 2, and lost game 3 because I never drew a third land. And that was very tough. round 2, I played against Ad Nauseam. I won 2-0. You just never... I was never in danger of losing that game. Round 3, I played against Green White Hate Bears. Got me game 1, game 2, game 3. Not close. Round 4, I played against Humans. I should have mulliganed more, which is actually kind of one of my big takeaways from this event was really, really, really need to mulligan more. Because I just, like I would keep a hand and be like, this hand is fine. And it was fine. But if my opponent didn't also have a hand that was just fine, it was, I would have been better off at like 5 good cards rather than like 6 cards. Round 5, I got destroyed by Green-Black Elves. That deck is really good, man.
Yeah, Elves is really powerful.
It was just, like game 1, I didn't have enough. Like they just sort of got wider than I could deal with. And then game 2, I died a turn before I was going to draw my Languish. And that happens sometimes.
Yep.
And I looked. I was like, was I going to get there? And the answer is yes, and it made me a little bit sadder. So then I went in. I still had like the ghost of a chance, right? Like I was X3 with like the world's worst breakers, but I was like, I'll play it. Like if I get to X and 4, then I'll find something else to do. And so I sit down. The guy's playing Jeskai, and I was like, come on, man. Like, what are you even doing? And so game 1, I beat him.
Oh, I'm going to answer for you. He was fighting the good fight.
Sure it was. He's
out there representing.
He was out there playing a deck that's 45% against the field. So I know from experience from playing this match that I can beat either Jace or Teferi, but not both. And so in the games when I was able to avoid that board state, I was fine. And the games where I was not able to avoid that board state, I lost.
Shocker.
And it was not shocking at all. It was just very annoying. Really, really, really frustrating.
Yeah, I can tell you from experience when I was playing Jeskai in Blue-White. If you ever had Jason Teferi in play, you almost 100% won that game.
Oh, yeah. There's not even an argument to be made. Like, just stop, right? As soon as those two things resolve, unless you have like, I don't even know, double Planeswalker kill spell that doesn't exist. So that was that. I went 2/4 drop, and then the entire like rest of the room apparently was on like Amulet and Titans. There were 12 Primeval Titans in the top 4, which is a lot of Primeval Titans to be.
That is a lot of
to be anywhere.
Titans.
He's a
Yes.
robust gentleman. So how they fit 12 of them, I'll never know. The quick breakdown of the expenses. I paid $280 for the plane ticket. 3 nights at Airbnb was $135. Shout out to David, who was great. I spent $77 on Uber trips, and that was those were not frivolous Uber trips. That was like just to and from the airport and a couple of like very small local stops. I spent $100 on 4 hours of coaching, which was quite good. And if you are in the market for coaching, Emma was great. So I have nothing but good things to say about that. I felt like it was money well.
I will say that is kind of not a very good expense to count towards your trip, I guess, because that isn't like something you did. Like you did it for like this project, right? But like, it's not something that was exclusive to this trip. Like that just made you a better Magic player.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So even if we sort of put that in the side column, right?
Sure.
I spent about, call it $50 in leagues just playing over the course of a couple of weeks. There's a $50 entry fee. And so I spent, depending on whether or not you want to count the coaching, $590 or $690 going to this thing, for which I received $0 in prizes and I believe 1 pity point from SCG for participation. I had originally intended to play in the Classic on Sunday. I did not play in the Classic on Sunday because including the Uber to and from the venue and the entry fee, it would have cost me $100. And I was not confident that I would even come close to like even recouping the car ride there. And I also was not feeling well because I just, for other reasons that were mostly related to the venue, just not feeling well. So I instead hung out at my very inexpensive yet palatial Airbnb and watched all of The Haunting of Hill House, which, if you like ghost stories, is quite good on Netflix.
It's fair.
So that was good EV for me. And then I flew home, and that was that. I will say, I sort of touched on this in the last episode with JD, and I was like, we talked about it a little bit, and I was like, why does anybody do this? Because even just the prep, I was like, my sleep is suffering, my personal relationships are suffering, it is an investment of time and sort of ephemera that is not negligible. And so I was like, I didn't see it. And then I dropped all this money and flew down there and scrubbed out and still didn't see it.
Well, I think you missed some of the best parts of the trips. So, like, for me, the part I enjoy the most, and the part, like, I know this sounds weird, but the car ride to the event is one of the absolute best parts of the event for me. It's not the best part because I'm traveling. It's the best part because I'm with friends, and we have this, like, excited energy, anticipation for the next day type situation, you know? And it's like the time you get to spend just like talking about your deck with your friends, like metagame decisions, what changes, what last minute adds, like all that stuff, how you approach X matchup, whatever. Like all of that is awesome. Like that is, something that I actually like just really, really enjoy. And, you went to this event alone, which, I'm not hating on it. That's just like how, like that's just like the reality of the situation you're in. Like that's how you had to approach it. But for me, that's like one of the best parts. So I think you are missing some of the experience, I guess.
Okay. Is that experience worth $600?
Well, so here's the other part, is that when I'm going to these events, I'm going with other people. So like where your plane ticket costs you a bunch of money, like the plane ticket's not going to change. But like when I'm doing a car ride, like that plane ticket expense is a lot less because it's probably a similar amount of gas to like no, it's not even, like gas is like 100, 150, something like that for like a full trip somewhere, right? But it's split between 4 people.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, a lot of this is a lot cheaper. And like we stay in like one hotel room when we go. So like that's cheaper.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I'm just too old for that. Like I did that.
Fair.
I did that for like literally 25 years of like going to cons and like piling, 12 people into a hotel room and like sitting in a car full of farts for like 10 hours. Like I did all that stuff. And like now at 38 with like a full-time job, I'm like, I work for a living. I should not have to sit in a fart box for 10 hours, no matter how much I like the people. And, and then go and like not have any privacy or any like room. That is just madness.
Well, see, but I mean, that's like a personal thing, though, right? It's like, I also work for a living. I could afford to, like, go by myself if that's what I wanted to, but, like, I actively go with friends because it's more enjoyable to me.
Sure. And I'm not saying that, like, I would never do that. Like, there is certainly something to be said for the road trip aspect of doing this. So I get that. I still find it hard to believe that even in that scenario, you still don't end up losing money on almost every trip.
Well, it also depends how much you win, right? Because, like, the problem here is that the income ledger of this balance sheet is showing a 0. Which, like, that was the idea, was, like, you were trying to win enough to balance it out. Which can be hard, but, like, if you do win, like, it definitely balances out,
It does not balance out. Like, not even a little bit. I would have had...
Maybe not here. I have bought, like, some very expensive cards just based on going to trips and winning.
Sure. But
not, like, trying to brag, but, like...
I am trying to brag a little bit, but that's fine.
I am trying to brag a little bit. That's fair. But like, that's just the reality of the situation. Like,
even if I had top
Pittsburgh,
8'd, right? Like, even if I had top 8'd, I still would have been down between $100 and $200. And
sure,
like, that's money. Like, those are real dollars.
I mean, those are real dollars, and Magic is not a cheap hobby. But the other thing too, like, you have to consider a little bit is, like, even if you were just at home, you'd be spending money doing something, generally, right? Like, if you're gonna take, your wife or girlfriend or whatever out for dinner that night, like, that's some amount of money, you're gonna go to the movies, whatever, that's some amount of money. Like, it's not like the amount of money you spent versus 0 is, like, what the cost of that day is because you're on this trip. It's like, versus whatever you would have spent at home ordering, the pizza that night in the movie or whatever it is that you did.
Sure.
So, like, there is some amount of that, and then also there's just some amount of, like, you went to a particularly expensive SCG. Like, my expenses for SCGs are never this high.
Right.
I've never paid this much. In fact, they're usually, like, a third of this, which is why I can make money going to them, because I keep the expense aspect down.
Sure. So here was my, like, my general takeaway was that you can't view it as a money-making venture. And by extension, the idea that you could ever make a living is a complete fantasy. There is a 0.0% chance that you can make a living just playing Magic. And
that is true.
Anybody that tells you otherwise is lying to you.
Well, that is true, but that's why you also see the pros, like the people that do make a living from Magic. It's not they're making a living just from tournament winnings. They're making a living from, producing content and or, like running like a business where they buy and sell cards, something along those lines. Yes. But they also just play in tournaments.
Well, the ones that are actually making a living play poker.
Well, some of them, sure.
Like if we're being 100% honest with ourselves. So now if I was to do this again and sort of like do all of those things that you're talking about, right? Like drive instead of fly, double or triple up on rooms, et cetera, et cetera. Like I don't think I would go to any event. And this is something that I said after a GP, but I think it's like extra true here is I wouldn't make that trip if I didn't have any buys. Like, I think that is just financial suicide to just be like, I'm going to waltz into this thing and just, breeze through the first 6 rounds and, everything will be fine. I don't think that it is possible to overstate how valuable a buy is.
Well, okay, so on the buy standpoint, I agree for the most part, like 95% agree.
Okay.
Because buys are incredibly valuable and people like drastically underestimate how much a buy is actually worth. So buys are worth a ton. But I will say that saying you wouldn't go without a buy is kind of crazy because there are times where it's like it just doesn't matter if you have a buy or not, you should just go. And those times, like, let me ask you, how did you feel about your deck going into the event? Like, what was your general feeling on your deck?
I was confident that I would be, that I had Jund percentages, i.e. probably 50-ish% against most things, and, variance, good variance and tight play would have gotten me the rest of the way, which is like pretty much.
So you felt like it was good.
Yeah. I mean, there's very few times when I would consider Jund to be bad. Like, there are times when it's bad, but those times are rare, and I don't feel like this is one of those times.
Well, okay, so from my perspective, I have gone to events where I felt like I could not lose, like going to the event. Like, I was playing with my deck online, I was just not losing. I was playing, in paper, just not losing. Just everything I did, just no losing. And those times are not, like, consistent. It's kind of few and far between, but that is, a place I have found myself, on occasion. And when you are, like, feeling hot like that, like, you should go to an event. Because then, like, not even, like, it doesn't matter if you have to buy or not. When you feel like you're winning like that, like, just go and just, ride that hot streak, I guess. That is, like, one of the times where I would say, like, I don't care if I have a buy or not. Like, I'm just crushing with this deck right now. I need to be playing an event with it.
Okay. So I think that segues perfectly into the sort of overarching structure of how a lot of these things work, which is that there's an underlying gambler's fallacy to, like, the whole thing.
I do know what the gambler's fallacy is. I am aware.
Okay.
And I know what you're trying to say is that, like, you can be on a hot streak, go to the event, and lose. And yes, that is possible, but Magic is not just a straight up gamble. It's not like flipping a coin, even though there are aspects to the game that are like that. But there are other aspects to the game that is confidence in your plays, deck's positioning in the metagame, like how it stacks up against other decks, how comfortable you are with your deck. And sometimes, like, all those confluence of events just come together, and it just really feels like you can't lose. And I've had this happen to me at events where it was just like I was testing the week before. It was like every deck I played against, my sideboard felt perfect for. I knew how to play all the matchups. I knew how to board right. I knew, like, what their game plan was, just all of that. And when you went and played, it was just like, it just kept repeating out the same way, where you just kept winning because, you would put in all this time. It just, everything felt right? So, it is, like, there is some aspect of the gambler's fallacy to it, but there is some aspect that isn't. And I'm telling you, like, if you ever are just, like, on a huge hot streak, like, you're playing online, you're playing in paper, whatever, you just, like, can't lose with the deck, like, one specific deck. And, like, and the metagame hasn't changed. And it's not like, you were winning and then standard rotated and now you go to the next one. Like, that is a different situation, right?
Sure.
But it's like you're playing the same format, nothing changed there. Like, I would go play because, momentum does carry over in Magic to some extent.
I don't believe you. Like, and not in a, like, I'm not trying to like poo-poo that part of it. It's just, I guess for me, or at least my perception of it, is that it is
like, this is not,
sometimes the only way to win is not to play, right? Like, I won $100 at that classic because I didn't spend $100 to go to it.
That is fair, but at the same time, like, you could have made money at the classic if you had actually won at the classic. Like, it could have gone poorly for you. Like, you could have missed your flight. Like, there's a whole confluence of events there, right? But you also missed out on, like, seeing friends at the event that day and, like, getting to, hang out with people, which, is part of what you pay for. Like, that's part of the experience of the trip.
Sure.
Right? And that's just like, that's not a monetary thing. That's like a happiness thing. But my point was with the buys. Like, you say you wouldn't go without a buy. And I'm telling you, like, a scenario where it's right to go even if you have no buys. Okay. And that's, like, when you're on the hot streak.
All right. So how do I get an SCG buy? How does that even work?
You need to be top 16 on the leaderboard. Or top 32.
Top 32. Yikes. Okay. Never mind. That's literally never going to happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way to get by, you have to go to events to get buys. Like, that's the other thing, is, like, you've got this, like, catch-22 going on where it's like, I'm not gonna go without a buy, but I can't get a buy unless I go. You know?
Yes. So, I guess I just need to play... Like, if I was gonna do this, if I was serious about it, I would just go to IQs, I think. Right? Like, that's... Because you get SCG points for that.
I don't think you get them towards buys. I think they are just towards, like, the invitational. Like, they can qualify you for the invitational, but they're not going to count towards... Oh, no, I'm wrong. No, they will go towards buys.
Okay.
So that's still a ton.
Sure. I mean...
Like, you can go to those things. That's fine. Like, and I'm not even saying, like, you're necessarily wrong on these. I'm just pointing out, like...
I guess I wouldn't go to an open cold again. I guess
that's fair,
right? Like, I would want to have some sort of footing, you know, and that's one of the things that I think is important to realize in terms of getting what you want out of it. You know, I was going there for a specific purpose, right? It was to do this project, get this data and do as well as I could. And I guess my take on it is that, or my summation is, like, this is not what I want from a Magic event. And that's not a dig on, like, SCG. Like, I think they run exceptional events, and I wouldn't, like, not recommend. Like, I think people absolutely should go. Like, as tournaments are run, and it's sort of a byproduct, right? Is like, if one of the things that you enjoy most is socializing, going to an extremely well-run, efficient tournament is not a good place to do that, because there's very little time between the rounds, because they turn over quickly, because, like, everybody's on point. And so you get to be like, hey, how'd you do? Oh, I won. Great. Oh, I lost. Oh, bad beats. And then, like, you're off to the next round. And then the only people that you do end up having time to socialize with are the other people that have scrubbed out and are in a bad mood.
Well, sure. I mean, SCG also runs team events too, though. Like, you didn't go to a team event. And, like, team events, there's a lot more socializing going on.
Sure.
Where it's like, you're talking to your team during the round, you're playing, you're talking with them after, because you all finish at the exact same time and start at the exact same time.
Yep.
Like, I've played team events and just normal events where it's like, in between every round, we just, like, have a table and we all play Love Letter, which is just like a card game.
I'm aware of Love Letter, yes.
And it really is a ton of fun. Like, I love playing Love Letter with a bunch of people there. And it's like one of my favorite things to do in between rounds, to socialize with people, is just, you know, play a game of Love Letter.
Yep.
And that's like a quick, easy thing to do, but, you know, it does make the event a lot more enjoyable.
Yes. Agreed. So I will say specifically that if I ever have occasion to go to this particular event venue, I would be 0% to return to the Cabarrus Arena and Events Center in not Charlotte, North Carolina. It was far away from everything, and there was nothing nearby. The on-site food vendor closed at like 4 p.m., maybe 5, and the event clearly runs much longer than that. And the only vending machine was broken. There was no cell phone reception inside because the building was basically like a bunker, and the pay Wi-Fi was like ridiculous. So every round you had to go outside to get your pairings because there was no cell phone reception inside the building.
That stinks. Yeah, that's bad.
It was just, you know, and you know, once again, I don't know the particulars of how or why this venue was chosen. I'm sure there's a reason for it, right? Like, I have enough confidence in Star City as a tournament organizer that they weren't like, yeah, I'll just find some crappy place and you know, throw people there. Like, there was a reason for it. I'm not privy to what that reason is. All I'm saying is, it'll be a cold day in hell before I ever go to this place again.
And that's fair. Like, this place might have stunk, but, like, I promise I've gone to SCGs where the venue was awesome. Like,
oh, sure.
Cincinnati, Columbus, Indianapolis, all are just fantastic. Like, would highly recommend.
Sure.
Any of those. So it's like, and Cleveland too. It's just like,
I like that.
Like,
I like that
you
Cleveland was the afterthought. It was kind of like a little backhanded compliment.
well, Cleveland is decent. It's not, the problem is it's close to Columbus, and Columbus is just so good. But that's, side note, neither here nor there. Like, the point is just like, you got a bad event, and like, a particularly bad location, right? And on top of that, like, you had to go by yourself. Like, it was just a confluence of, like, bad factors that caused you to miss out on, like, some of the better parts of the event. And then on top of that, like, there just wasn't a lot of winning, which makes every weekend harder, right?
Sure. So what did I learn as far as, like, things that I could have done better? Because, obviously, I take responsibility for, like, my play, the stuff that I had control over. I did not have a good enough sideboard plan. Like, I had meant to spend extra time, like, making a written sideboard plan, and I didn't finish it, and I didn't really, like, get to dig into it. So I am sure that the decisions that I made for some of the matches were suboptimal. And that's an easy thing to fix. Like, I could have very easily just taken a day before I left and been like, okay, here's going to be my sideboard plan. We already talked about the mulliganing thing. Like, I was not confident enough to sort of make difficult mulligan decisions. So I ended up keeping a lot of hands that were probably like borderline that should have been mulliganed, that probably would have had better outcomes. I was not prepared for the mirror at all. And because I was like, well, who else is going to be playing Jund? Like, Jadine's going to be playing Jund, and if we play, I'm just automatically going to lose because the difference in our play skill is astronomical. So, I was ready to just have that be the case, right? And I didn't. There were not a lot of humans, but I ended up playing against them. Or there were a lot of humans in the room. Humans the deck, obviously. I mean, there were a lot of regular humans there too. But I didn't. I don't feel like I prepared enough for it, and that I think is a byproduct of just testing on Magic Online, because I just played against so much burn and so much like stuff that I will not see. And so I think in terms of testing, I didn't have a representative gauntlet to work with. So that was another thing that was kind of like questionable.
Sure.
And so now that all that gloomy stuff is out of the way, there was a ton of stuff that was dope. Like, like I said, the SCG event sort of running apparatus was top notch as always. It never had an issue with any event of theirs that I've been to. The judges were great. There was an offsite event on Friday, with BCW and Team Lotus Box did like a come battle with us thing, and you win sleeves and stuff like that, and it was very cool. It was at a place called Scott's Collectibles in Kannapolis, North Carolina. So if you're in the area, the people that own it were very nice. And I did not know that this was a thing, but WizKids puts out a series of miniatures, and one of their lines is called Deep Cuts. And the Deep Cuts line has like just miscellaneous furniture and stuff. And one of the things is so for D&D. And
sure.
It's just like miniatures, and they have a rack, like a torture rack.
Ooh, okay.
And I saw it and I was like, I have to own this. And so now I have a little tiny rack that sits on my desk.
That's awesome.
So like that was cool. I mean, I need to get 7 more of them, obviously. And seeing people, right? Like I got to see Kat and I got to see Emma and I got to see Janine, who I don't get to see very often anymore because she doesn't live up here. I got one of my friends, Jake, who actually works at my LGS, was down there. So I got to see him in sort of like a different context. And I saw Caleb Shearer, got to say hi to him. And, I got to meet Saul Malka finally, which was super cool. I was like, he's finally on Twitter now. So it's my lazy communication style is, much easier when people are on Twitter, cause I can just message them.
Sure.
But like I went up, said hi. He was very, very friendly. He was like, "Oh, hey, it's great to meet you finally." So we chit chatted for a little while. And I got to meet Becky, who came in third at the event. Escape Shift, like Titan Shift, did the business. So that was very cool. I got to hang out with Liz, she edits the V-Click podcast. She's Kat's friend Liz.
Yep.
So she was super cool. I got to meet Ryan Overture finally, sort of chit chat with him. I met Paul Muller, who's very nice. There are, I'm sure, a number of other people that I met that my memory is failing me because, as previously stated, I am old.
Fair.
Look, man, there's only so much room in my brain, and I need to know what like every stupid bulk rare from Future Sight block does in case I need it for a brew. And I cannot be held responsible for remembering things like people's names.
Fair. That is fair.
Like if you need to know what Arcanum Wings does, I'm your guy. If you need to remember like me to remember meeting somebody, please find someone else because I'm not that dude. So, I guess, like I said, would I do it again? Yes, absolutely. Seeing friends and sort of when the stuff goes well, it is absolutely worth doing. In a, like, I'm going on vacation and vacations cost money. If that's the mindset, then I'm in, right? Like, this is just a thing that I'm going to, and, my friends are going to be there and we're all going to be kind of doing the same thing and whatever. Will I have zero future as a grinder. Like I'm very convinced that you are completely insane and I have no idea why you do this to yourself.
It's love, man.
Right. And and that's the thing.
Struggle of love.
Like I'm sitting here, I'm like running the numbers and just like trying to figure it out. And I get it, but also,
Well, look, like for me personally, there's some amount of like leveraging skill to this, right? Because it's like you spent this time to get better so that you could do well at this event, right? And like it didn't go great, right? Like it didn't work out the way you wanted it to, but you still spent the time to get better, right? And like that is like a microcosm for the first like year I went to SEGs. And I only went to SEGs that were near me. Like I wasn't traveling to ones far away. I was going to like, ones that were like a 3 or 4 hour drive, which I'm lucky that there are some for me that are in that distance, but like it doesn't really matter the event. Like you can play on Magic Online, you can play, in local PPTQs, whatever. Like if you can find events near you, you can go to them. And like I was losing when I first started going to them, but I practiced and I got better and I like did this, routinely. Like I continued to do it. And then eventually it was like, well, now when I go, I expect to do well because I have been doing this long enough that I feel like I can leverage my skill during matches, right?
Sure.
So it's like, yes, when you first start, like, expect to lose, but that's like every game you play. Like, you can't just tell me, like, tomorrow you're gonna be a professional basketball player, like, walk up to, like, ex-professional team and, like, try to play with them, like, you're gonna, do terrible. Like, that's just how that works. Like, you haven't practiced basketball, you haven't played in 2 years, or I don't even know whatever. However long it's been since you played basketball. You know what I'm saying?
Literally never.
All right, well that's fair. You probably would do really bad then.
I would do super bad.
But that's
I've held a basketball, and I understand that it is a game that has rules. Asterisk, I do not know what any of those rules are, and I do not have any of the physical, other than being 6 feet tall, which I guess is a thing. That is my only advantage. And
that's like short in basketball terms too.
Okay.
Like, it's not even an advantage.
Well, then you know what? There's no buys in basketball, so
There's no buys in basketball.
You know, I'm totally out.
No, that's fair. But like for me, like part of it is that like, right? Like I spent this time, like I spent time losing so that the next one I went to I could win, and that's like what happened, right? Like I lost. Oh, I won.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then I lost, 5 or 6 more, and then I was in the top 8. Like it's a slow grind, but like look at anybody that is successful. They went through it and they figured out, how to navigate that path, I guess, and they get to the point where like they've done enough of these, they have enough experience, they're familiar enough with the game, if you will, and then and then they start winning, and then they start actually making money. Like that's just how the whole process works.
Sure.
And it's like, yeah, I can see why this one went bad, and like, yes, it turned out negatively, but at the same time, it's like, you're looking at the very first part of the process, right?
Sure.
Like, all the rewards come down the road, and you're like, yeah, the first day sucked. Well, it's like, yeah, the first day does suck. It's like, even like, compare that to going like, getting back in a workout regimen, which, something that we've been, stressing on the Discord. Like, the first day you go back to working out might actually be fun. The second day is not. It is awful. It's horrible. It hurts.
Strong agree.
And it's like, yeah, like that sucks, and there's no rewards to it. Like, it just is something you did, and it sucked. But it's like, 6 months later, if you continue doing this, all of a sudden you're fit, like you look good, like you feel good, like, there's a ton of benefits. You just didn't see them for a while. And like, that's what is going on here. But like, you're focused on like the microcosm short-term aspect of it. So, like, I will say, like, I don't disagree with any of your takes. I think you're right on all of it. It's just that, like, you didn't look big enough picture, in my opinion. If what you were trying to do was, like, actually make money from it, right?
Sure. All right. Let's do the break. So we are back for part 2. Welcome back. We want to run down the Charlotte metagame really quick. It was interesting. A lot of big boys on the field. First place.
A lot of primeval titans, if you will.
A lot of primeval yes, titans of a primeval bent. So there were 3 primeval titan decks in the top 4. It was Will Pulliam, Amulet Titan, in first, Austin Robbins, Amulet Titan in second, Becky Edelman, Titan Shift in third, and Philip Lauren, Blue Light Control, in fourth. And then the rest of the top 8 was Storm, Caleb Shear, Jund, Jadine, Bantam Spirits, Charles Sedbury, who I don't know, and Jordan Reith. Is it Wizards? A Delver of Secrets jam. I am in.
Playing Adelies the Cinderwind. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we'll dig into that in a minute. And then the rest of the top 16, Humans, Burn, Bant Spirits, Humans, Infect, Burn, Tron, Dredge.
There you go. The first Dredge chilling there in 16th place.
Yes. Played by Ross Merriam, no less. So,
that really is like the story of the event, though, is Dredge, right?
Yes. It was almost completely hated out of the metagame in a single week.
Well, so it is and it's not, right? Because like 2 weeks ago, or whatever, maybe 3 weeks ago at this point, we saw Dredge absolutely dominate when people realized Creeping Chill in the deck is pretty dumb. And it's just very powerful. And so going into this event, everyone was kind of ready for it, right? But it's like, you can't just like rebuild your entire deck to just beat Dredge. That's just not how it works in Modern. Like, you can't just like, start from scratch. Okay, I'm just gonna make this deck beat Dredge. Like, if you want to beat Dredge, what you need to do is just play a deck that already has a good Dredge matchup. And just as it happens in Modern, the big mana decks all tend to play Graveyard Hate. Like, Tron just has Relic of Regenesis all the time. And like, Amulet Titan just plays Bojuka Bog main deck, and they can tutor it up. And Scape Shift often plays Anger of the Gods in their sideboard, or even main deck sometimes. Like,
yep.
And they just like have ways to win quick. Like, Scape Shift can just kill Dredge, whatever. So there's a number of reasons why these big mana decks dominated, and mostly it's Dredge. It's like Dredge just kind of beat everything, and then the big mana decks beat Dredge. And that is just the story of this event. Like, other decks did things, and they showed up well, but it was a good weekend to be playing big mana, and big mana triumphed.
Yep. There were, Oh, we'll get to that. Yikes. So, let's see, what else? Another Amulet Titan, Humans, Counters Company. I don't know if this is Elves. Oh, this is like Counters Company. Panza. Yikes. Mono Green Tron, Grixis Whir. This is like the new worse Lantern. Because its only main deck win condition is looping Pirate Spellbomb with Academy Ruins. Don't play this deck, please.
No, play it. It's awesome. Get in there.
Sure. Runaway Red. So there was 2 Arclight Phoenix decks that made top 32. There was this version, Rudy Brixa, 4 Arclight Phoenix, 4 Bedlam Reveler, 2 Swift Spear, 4 Runaway Steamkin, 18 lands, and then Desperate Ritual, Manamorphose, Risk Factor, Tormenting Voice, Faithless Looting, and then Burn. 4 Fiery Tempers, 4 Lightning Bolts, 2 Burst Lightning. Burst Lightning is a bad spell. Please stop playing it. God.
Dude, I was about to suggest that they play a deck with Burst Lightning in it.
I feel like we've covered extensively my disdain for Burst Lightning.
Burst Lightning is great. I am a huge Burst Lightning fan.
Ugh. Yeah. All right. Anyways, but Tormod's Crypt, Blood Moon, Anger of the Gods, like all good cards available for that. And then the other Arclight Phoenix deck was structured similarly, but it was 4 Phoenix, 4 Reveler, 4 Swift Spear, 4 Needle Drop.
That's what's up.
This is absolutely not a playable card. This is Pauper Burn.
Yeah, it's a Pauper staple, dude.
Yes, it's a Pauper staple.
You know what else is a Pauper staple? Brainstorm. Okay, Brainstorm's not, but Daze kind of is. So,
Fiery Temper, Bolt, Manamorphose, Looting, like Lava Spike, I could probably be something else. Rift Bolt, I'm not in love with. Tormenting Voice, Needle Drop, like, this needs to go. Like, I get it draws you a card, but there's other red, like, cantrips that are not Needle Drop.
There's really not. There's not that many red cantrips. There are, but there's not.
I'll work on it. I will find... that card exists. I will find it. Who knows? Maybe it's Spark of Creativity. And
definitely not that one.
Hey, Spark of Creativity is great.
No, it's not. That is way worse than Needle Drop.
Strong disagree.
I am a Needle Drop fan. Put me in the fan club of the Needle Drop.
Yikes.
I have suggested to people that they play 1 Needle Drop in their burn deck before.
Yes.
It's never happened, but if you wanted to do that, you could do that. You could play 1 Needle Drop.
There's no way that the first Needle Drop is better than, like, the 4th, literally any other playable burn card.
Well, there is a way, and that is if that card is Shard Volley, and you wanted 4 Shard Volley, you should play 3 Shard Volley and 1 Needle Drop.
No, you would play, devastating summons.
Okay, well, Shard Volley also better than the 4th Devastating Summon. Or Needle Drop better than 4th Devastating. Whatever.
I thought you wanted this to be a short episode, and you're just like you're on
Dude,
you're on the needle drop train.
It draws a card. It's like Electrolyze. It's so good.
Oh my god! All right, so 4 Tormod's Crypt, 3 Shrine of Burning Rage, which is on a comeback tour of Modern. A risk factor, anger the gods, right? So like all stuff that's good against Dredge. And then there was another dredge, a couple more dredges that scraped their way into the top 32.
All right, so big picture here. What are we seeing in Modern? Well, we're still seeing that Dredge is still running away as the best deck, right? Where it's not doing it in the way that Humans was, where Humans was the best deck and it was hard to hate out effectively. It's more like it's the best deck in the sense that like when Affinity was the best deck, it like wasn't the best deck every week, which is actually healthy in Modern, even if this Dredge deck doesn't feel super healthy when you play against it.
Sure.
But yeah, Dredge is really good, and that means you should play Graveyard Hate. And if that's the case, and we saw what happens when Dredge is just the front runner, the decks that can naturally do what they're doing but also play Graveyard Hate, win in the format, which in this scenario was big mana decks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now the question is, and this is what we kind of wanted to get at here with the whole Modern meta situation, is that Modern is kind of in this rotating pattern that you get when your best deck is exploitable. And what that means is like it's pretty easy to predict what type of decks you should play for the next week based on their matchup versus like what last week's like front runner was. And it's just kind of going to rotate for a little while, in my opinion, until there's like more cards added to the card pool. And so I think what we're going to see is whatever decks can beat Dredge and also have a good matchup against big mana are going to do well next weekend.
So, I'm trying to think. Burn. Infect.
Burn has a good matchup against big mana. I think Burn's Dredge matchup is bad.
Okay.
It can beat Dredge. Like you can be like a 4 Rest in Peace deck, but I would say the game 1 just feels really tough when they're just
sure.
Life every other turn.
Yeah. No. I mean, it's certainly, it's not like it used to be. Like it used to be very good.
It did used to be good. It's just no longer the case.
Yeah, I mean, but you can play Rest in Peace. I mean, hell, you can play 4 Tormod's Crypt. Like that is a real thing, and that has an appreciable impact.
It does, but like Burn isn't the deck that gets that much better when it's doing that. Like, it does get better. Like it helps in the matchup to have these things, but it's like you also are diluting your game plan, and Burn's very susceptible to having his game plan diluted. Where it's like you drew your Rest in Peace, which is good, but now you also need to draw another bolt because you're going to be 3 damage short.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So Burn does have a hard time in that aspect. It's not like a great Rest in Peace deck. It's like a deck that can play Rest in Peace.
Yep. So I could see Infect doing well.
I like Infect. I think Infect is a very good call.
And I'm trying to think. I mean, fast combo that's not Ad Nauseam. Like, Ad Nauseam is...
I actually think Ad Nauseam is well positioned.
I feel like maybe this is just my most recent experience playing against it, is that, like, it always felt a turn or two, like, a turn and a half slow. Like, the setup is now too vulnerable to commonly played cards. I mean, Dredge is playing Assassin's Trophy. So, like... You can very easily just be like, all right, here's my Phyrexian Unlife, and then they just go, oh, Assassin's Trophy, kill you.
I mean, certainly Dredge can do that, but I think overall, Ad Nauseam is well positioned. I think that it is a good deck. If you're trying to exploit Dredge and big mana, Ad Nauseam has a good match against both of those type of decks. And I also think it's the best Ad Nauseam has been positioned in a long time, considering it is horrible against humans.
Yes.
And humans is finally on a downswing. It's been a long time since we saw humans go on a downswing. Which is good. I mean, this is actually healthy. Like, I am happy that humans is finally not number one.
Sure. Yeah, I guess just I would be looking at aggressive decks that don't fold to Graveyard Hate.
I was gonna say, can I give you another class of decks I think is really well positioned right now?
Is it Blue-Red Wizards? Because if it's not, then that's what we're talking about.
Well,
okay. I'm sorry.
I guess it could be Blue-Red Wizards. Okay. I don't think this is specifically Blue-Red Wizards. I could imagine Blue-Red Wizards fits in this classification. But I am thinking of Temur Battle Rage decks. I think Temur Battle Rage decks are very well positioned.
Okay.
Now, whether that be like, the Holy Diva blue special, I don't know what her deck is called.
It's just blue. Just blue.
Just blue? Just blue? Okay.
Yeah, like the Kiln Fiend deck.
The Kiln Fiend deck, yeah.
Yep.
I think that deck is well positioned. I think any Death Shadow deck playing Battle Rage well positioned. So those are good. And then I also have a control deck that I think is awesome right now that people just aren't ready for. We'll touch on that in a second.
Okay. I do want to talk about this Blue-Red Wizards deck, though.
Sure.
Delver, Grim Lobmancer, Nimble Obstructionists, 4 Snapcaster Mages. You should already love this deck.
I mean, it plays 4 Snapcaster Mages. I'll play it.
Right. Adley's the Cinderwind, which you might remember from Dominaria Draft.
Adley's was a bomb in Dominaria Draft. That card was awesome.
Yeah. One blue-red, flying haste, 2/2 legendary human wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, wizards you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So she
anthems the whole team.
Yes, with prowess. And then, just good spells. 8 lightning bolts, 2 spell snares, 4 mana leaks, a roast, an Is It Charm. I don't know. I go back and forth on Is It Charm. An Opt, a bunch of lands, Staticaster, Alpine Moon, Surgical, Spell Pierce, Relics. I honestly, I think this is probably one of those decks where, like, if you are curving out and Dredge is curving out, your Relic is not going to matter because they're already going to be dead.
What, against Dredge?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I agree. I think Dredge is a lot faster than this deck.
Like, Blind Flip, Delver on 1.
I mean, like, right there, like, that's just, like, that's pretty lucky. Like, you have to have a Delver, and then you have to Blind Flip it. Like, you only have 22 spells. It's not that likely. You're only, like, a third, like, you're, like, 33% to flip it. At most.
I don't know. I think this deck has the potential to race.
I think you have game against Dredge, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's, like, a great matchup against Dredge. I do think that the deck is sweet, though, and I have a huge issue that there's not 2 Adeleys now that I'm looking at this.
Okay.
We need another Adeleys.
Okay. I think the main deck of Braids is actually probably the thing that gives you an edge against Dredge in a weird way, is because Shriekhorn is a surprisingly important part of their game plan right now. Because it allows them to keep hands that don't have, some other way to, like, get the engine started. So if they get 1 activation off their Shriekhorn instead of 3, because you braid it after the first one, like, that has the potential to cut them off of 6 cards, 8 cards, 10 cards. I mean, that's a lot. So I'm in on a braid. I'm ready.
Look, I like a braid. I just have a better version of this deck.
All right, lay it on me. I'm ready.
Well, let's talk about what we would play in GP Atlanta this weekend.
Okay. What would you play?
So the deck
the notes killing me. All right, go ahead. No, go.
The deck I would play this weekend is Blue Moon. Okay. Now, hold on for just a second. I know what you're saying, Zach. Dirtily Blue Cryptic Command deck. I get it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Except we're looking for a deck that's good against Dredge, which Blue Moon actually is good against Dredge, surprisingly. And we're looking for a deck that is good against big mana. Well, you're a Blood Moon deck. You're pretty good against big mana. I know there's this, like, thought that Blue Moon is not good against big mana, like Tron specifically, because Like, they just cast their card into your Blood Moon, but we're talking about a Thing in the Ice Blood Moon deck. So it's like, no, you're actually good against Tron. Like, you get your Blood Moon down, and then you flip your Thing in the Ice like 2 turns later, and then they just take so much damage and die. Like, that's just how the deck works. And you tend to be pretty favored against Tron. I mean, you can lose, it's not like 100%, but you are good against big mana decks, and against Dredge, flipping Thing in the Ice is great. Like, you just bounce all their garbage, like, creatures they brought back from the graveyard back to their hand. Now they got a bunch of cards in hand. You remand all of their Conflagrate, so you can counter their best spell without being down a card. And Thing in the Ice and Cryptic Command just work well enough to just deal huge chunks of damage to them. And then on top of that, you get to play cards like Main-Deck Anger the Gods, and you get to have like a bunch of relics in your sideboard to, kind of do some good work for you there. I think that it's very well positioned against Dredge, and I think it's good against big mana. And then on top of that, Blue Moon's just weakness, the way this deck is built forever, has been how bad you are against big creatures. Like, you don't ever want to play against Shadow, you don't ever want to play against Eldrazi, those are the nightmare matchups. Because you just don't have spells that kill them, and you can't get under them enough to not make their big creatures matter. And it just never had tools before to deal with those creatures. There wasn't, like, the best thing you could play was Harvest Pyre, and that was, like, at best, like, a one-time answer to these things.
Oh.
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, you were going pretty deep, and it was not good. But now, you actually get a card called Beacon Bolt, which is from the new set from Guilds of Ravnica. And it is 1 blue-red, deal damage to target creature equal to the number of instants and sorceries in your graveyard and in exile. So it counts exile, which is interesting because you already kind of wanted to play Relic of Progenitus, so like it still works with that. Mm-hmm. But it also has jump starts. So it's like 2 big kill spells in 1 card, which is awesome when you're looking for specifically a big kill spell. Like, it's awesome that you can get 2 of them in 1 card to put in your sideboard. Like, it saves the sideboard slot, essentially, right?
Okay.
And it's just good with Thing in the Ice, so you can cast it twice to, like, get 2 counters off of it. So that's sweet. And then it also got Ral Zarek, which is something Blue-Red loves. Because post-board, like, you play against these grindy decks like Jund and stuff, where you want to be killing big creatures, which Ral Zarek can. He has the minus, is literally just Beacon Bolt's text. But he also is just a card advantage engine. And, he, can win the game with his ultimate. And the deck was kind of using Jace to do that before, and Jace did win, but he was a little slow and not he just didn't have enough loyalty for Modern, I guess. But this new Ral has a ton of loyalty. He's very hard to deal with. He kind of feels like Teferi, in my opinion. So I think as like a sideboard threat, Ral is exactly what this deck was looking for. It's just a way to answer big creatures. It's a way to outgrind decks like Jund and, keep up with the card advantage of blue-white control. It's just kind of everything the deck wanted in just like one nice sideboard package. So, like, you got some cards to fill some of the classic holes of the archetype. It is naturally well positioned against the current frontrunners in the format. It also has a very good humans matchup and spirits matchup, believe it or not. So I think it's very well positioned. I'm probably going to play it at the Invitational. We'll see how that goes. But
to the surprise of no one.
The metagame might change, but it's my front runner right now.
Okay.
And, I think it's a good call. I think it's a good place to be.
Okay. So the Ral, just because I looked up the wrong one originally, the Ral that you're talking about is the new one from Guilds. Ral, is it Viceroy?
Yep.
3 blue black, 5 loyalty, +1.
Blue red.
Or blue red, I'm sorry. +1, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put 1 in your hand and the other into your graveyard, so +1 draw card, basically.
Well, but it's better than that. It's like draw a good card.
Okay, sure. draw the better of 2 cards.
I mean, like, people play sleight of hand, right?
No, I get it. Like I said, yes, people do play sleight of hand. And then his -3, like you said, is the Beacon Bolt text, and then -8, you get an emblem with whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, this emblem deals 4 damage to any target, and you draw 2 cards.
The emblem is very game winning. The emblem is very game winning.
I mean, is he better than Chandra though? Like
the 4-mana Chandra?
The 4-mana Chandra, like, she does many similar things a turn sooner.
You know what 4-mana Chandra does not do? Kill Reality Smasher, which is a nightmare for this deck. Okay. I have played this deck in SCGs before, And I was just like winning all of my rounds, and then I'd play against the person who was like Cavern of Souls, Name Eldrazi, Cast Reality Smasher, and I would just be like, you know what, sir? You have defeated me.
Yes,
good games.
I have been defeated.
I'm going to go home and hang my head in shame.
Right.
Just
Eat
very
a sad
very depressed.
convention center hot dog.
Yes.
The hot dogs were actually reasonably priced. I will say, for the concession stand, like 2 hot dogs, fries was like $9, which I thought was very reasonable, considering.
Look, all I'm saying, Aaron, is that I own Foil Rail Is It Viceroys for a reason.
I don't think that's true.
It is true. I do own them.
Like, you have a reason. I know you have a reason. I understand that. You have a reason in your head.
Oh, they're great. I have played one league with them, and I am convinced that it is the new best Planeswalker in Modern.
Whoa. Okay. Fair enough.
It's not that good, but it is. It's exactly what this deck was looking for. I can say that for sure.
Okay. So I would probably play. I would play either some sort of like Arclight Phoenix deck.
Yes. Yes, please.
And so I would probably play like Mardu Phoenix. Like, it felt very good when I started. That was the first deck that I put it in. Right before you were like, there's no way it goes in here, and then Jerry did a stream and he was playing it, and I was like, yeah, what's up? Remember those gloats? Gotta get that gloat equity.
That's fair.
It just, I like the style of the Mardu shell, right? Like, I enjoy playing mid-range decks. I think white sideboard cards are especially good against a lot of the sort of bad, like big bad decks. Like Alpine Moon, I think is a very serviceable thing. You can play Blood Moon if you want. That's fine too. But just like having a lot of unconditional removal is something that I'm pretty interested in right now. And Dreadbore is a very good spell. I think, like, at this second, I'm not playing like a million of them, but I played one main deck, and I would absolutely do it again. So, having Fatal Push and Path and, Terminate and all that stuff, right? It's like nice Worm Coil Engine, Path. Nice Primeval
Sure.
Titan, Path, Terminate, whatever. And it also gives you life gain, like sort of pointed life gain and the potential for incidental life gain. So I like that quite a bit. I think you can kind of almost turn it into like Ancestral Recall Tribal between Bedlam Reveler and Risk Factor. So that's pretty good. Like, I think it covers a lot of the bases. The other thing that I would consider playing is just black-white planeswalkers, black-white mid-range.
Call it by its real name.
Yes, it is the Gabe Nassif black-white sewer.
Yes. Yes.
I don't remember if his version plays Smallpox, but mine probably would. Just because I really like Smallpox. And I will say also, like, Dredge plays a very low land count. So if you can, like, they will keep like one land Shriekhorn. And if you just like Smallpox, like, you've got potentially like 3 to 4 turns before they ever draw another land. And, with a good enough clock, which would probably be, I would probably play, I did a version of like black-white mid-range Smallpox that had, the creatures were 4 Bloodghasts and 4 Kitchen Finks. And in with them and Sorin Solemn Visitor, it closes games very quickly.
Okay.
So like, they're hard to kill, all that good stuff. The only problem is there's probably going to be more Anger of the Gods. So I would probably look at something different, but so something in that realm. And
I do think you're right about Anger of the Gods. I think Anger of the Gods is absurdly well positioned right now.
Yeah. And I just, man, can we talk? So I don't know if I'm going to play Titan Shift per se, but I am working on a number of Scape Shift piles right now. And so I was looking at Becky's list from the open, and so it's right, like it's all the stuff you would expect, right? Primeval Titan, Secure Tribe Elder. She plays 3 Conley Heart Expedition and a Prismatic Omen, in addition to like all the other stuff. And she also plays 3 Explore, 1 Farseek, instead of like older lists used to play 4 Farseek. All of which I like. She's only on 2 Summoners Pact, which I also think is good. 4 Summoners Pact I think is just too much. But the sideboard, this sideboard. 3 Damping Sphere, great. 2 Grafdigger's Cage, also great. 1 Carnage Tyrant.
Ooh.
Yeah. That would be the 6 mana 7/6 trample hexproof that can't be countered.
I have a lot of problems with that card.
Seems
that
good.
Card is
because you have
real
no ability,
dumb.
you have no ability to kill it.
I'm gonna bounce it back to your hand, so I'm gonna do.
Yeah. 2 Obstinate Baloth, also good. Rexage, Tireless Tracker, Braid, Ancient Grudge. We already sort of talked about why those are good. Beast Within.
You know what 7/6s are bad against?
7/8s.
That's it. 7/8s. You got it.
So Beast Within, the catch-all, Anger of the Gods. This is the one that made me unbelievably happy. Hour of Devastation.
That's because Becky is smart and she plays awesome cards.
This is so dope. Like, so Hour of Devastation, ostensibly.
It kills Teferi. It's great.
Yes. So, like, whereas I cannot beat a Jace and a Teferi, Hour of Devastation, for a trim 5 mana, 3 red sorcery, all creatures lose indestructible until end of turn. Hour of Devastation deals 5 damage to each creature and each non-bolus planeswalker. Peace out.
Well, she is going to have trouble against the Oath of Nissa Tron deck.
Sure. And
yeah, it's going to get her.
Yeah.
If it plays bolus, yeah.
Yeah, that's a getcha.
Yep.
You know, I'm not super worried about that. I mean, there's a Beast Within. Like, if we're there.
That's fair.
So I'm super into this right now, and I tried to play a really bad. It was like a non-scape shift. It was like I tried to make Splendid Reclamation work, and it just didn't. It was very frustrating. But I also didn't think of like playing Conflagrate, because that turns out is pretty good. And we will come back to that whole nonsense later. But so yeah, I also think that just like in general, being able to top deck like a one card combo that your opponent is not going to be, so like if you're playing against another big mana deck, is unlikely that they're going to be playing something like world land hate.
Sure.
They're just going to be playing like random stuff. So they play like Amulet plays 1 Ghost Quarter. Yep. 1 Ghost Quarter. End of list.
Yeah, I mean, that's not... Amulet's thing is going faster than you. They're not trying to, like, slow you down that much.
Yes.
I mean, you can. Like, the thing is that Amulet is just... When Amulet's doing its thing, it's just very, very fast.
Sure.
It's just like casting, like, turn 3 prime times on the plate. Like, that's messed up.
And,
like, it's doing it with, like Cavern of Souls sometimes.
Yep. Yeah, 1 Cavern of Souls naming giant. That is a flex.
It is.
Check me out.
All right.
So, anyways, moving on. That's I think, yeah. I would play one of those two decks likely. And speaking of Phoenix and things like that, I did want to just quickly jump back to our set review for Guilds of Ravnica and just point out how well we did.
Yep. If you look right underneath Chemister's Insight as the third best card of the set, I had Arclight Phoenix at number 4. So,
Indeed.
You heard it here first. Chemister's Insight worse than or better than Arclight Phoenix? Question mark.
So, my list. So March of the Multitudes hasn't broken out in Modern
yet.
Yet. I think that it's
coming.
It's coming.
That is not a fun card for Dredge to deal with.
No. Nope. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Like Lingering Souls, right? Like Lingering Souls is very good. Not very good, but it can be. It's like infinite. Actually, you know what I think is really good? Bitter Blossom. Right? Just like infinite chump blockers. Like
it seems really slow to me right now.
It is.
But I do like March in that like there are like busted ways to power it out in Modern.
Mm-hmm.
People haven't really got there yet, but like there are like Lingering Souls is a great one.
I think people
you can play Colony Garden, which is like, I mean that seems like pretty bad, but like it's a thing.
Yeah. Well, Colony Garden, 3-mana Nissa makes a plant token. Like there's plenty of stuff you can do. Like I'm sure there's like an Abzan tokens deck probably.
Well, there was an Abzan tokens deck that like Matt Nass top-8 an event with.
There you go.
It's like I don't think that it's impossible for that deck to exist. I don't know. It's just not there yet. But you had Creeping Chill on your list. Which
I had
So like a great call on your part.
I had Creeping Chill, Runaway Steamkin, and Risk Factor on my list.
Those are all very good calls. I was gonna say I remember when we were making the list, I was like, you had Creeping Chill like pretty high on yours, and I was like, you're not serious, right? This card's a joke. And then like 2 weeks later, it like puts like 3 copies of Dredge in the top 6 decks of a Magic Online event. It's like, ridiculous. Alright, maybe Creepy Chill just is the truth.
Yeah. I mean, you had plenty, like Assassin's Trophy, obviously, like Knight of Autumn seemed to play all over the place, Arclight Phoenix. Beast Whisperer is starting to creep into the sideboard of some Elves lists that I've seen. I don't know if that's going to be widely adopted. Pelt Collector, like plenty of Vexing Devil Zoo, Pelt Collector, like Evolved decks running around. Mausoleum Secrets, when there is a world in which, like As Foretold, Living End is a thing again, like that's another one that sort of like gets hit by a lot of the Splash 8 for Dredge. I'm still holding out hope that card will be in Death Shadow. Oh yeah, no,
I'm not sure yet, but I'm holding out hope.
Yeah, I think it is. Ionize, I put Ionize in a Delver deck and it was awesome.
I think Ionize is sweet, dude. I love that card.
Unmoored Ego, seeing plenty of sideboard play. It turns out that it's better than we thought. Like it allows those decks, like the decks that play it turns like 0% matchups into like 40% matchups or 50% matchups, and that's...
Well, it's just so good against decks that rely on one card, right? And there just is a wide swath of Modern decks that do this, like Living End and Ad Nauseum and Amulet Titan. Like, all these decks just rely on one card for their entire game plan to function. Like, Valakut relies on Valakut.
Right.
Tronland relies on Urza's Tower, or whatever Urza's land you want to take. Like, it's just a very high impact card in certain matchups, and it makes sense.
Yep. You had Ralzeric on here as your pet card, so I think that's worth it since you're
shocking that I got the foils.
So weird. But I still think there's even other ones that are on our list that are waiting in the wings. Like March of the Multitudes, I think definitely has a place. Mission Briefing, trust me,
it doesn't have a place. That one is not going to show up.
It absolutely does. I'm building blue-black Surveil Fairies. Danielle tested the first version of it today. The next version is getting tested tomorrow.
Version 2?
Version
with no
2.
mission briefing.
False. Version 1 had no mission briefing. Version 2 has 2 mission briefings.
Oh man, we're going. This should be version 0.5.
And it also plays Disinformation Campaign and Disinformation.
That
Campaign
I can get behind. Disinformation Campaign is sweet.
Yeah, like
Mission briefing is not
against any control deck. Like Disinformation Campaign is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
So there's that. I got an invitation from somebody on our Discord because I posted the Blue Black Surveil fairies, and they were like, I had to read this message. I was on the Discord and I see this message pop up, and it says, "The fairies Discord wants to talk to you about your list." And I was like, okay. I said, do they think I'm the biggest idiot ever? Is this an intervention? And he's like, no, they're curious. So I went over to the fairies Discord. They were quite helpful. Sort of like working through, cause I tried a bunch of different stuff, and I saw what wasn't working. And so they had a ton of really good suggestions. So that was how I built like the most recent version that I'm going to test. So big shout out to everybody on the fairies Discord. Very helpful. For somebody that does not normally play, fairies decks, cause they are kind of an animal unto themselves. And all right. So let's talk about your PT prep. We'll do listener questions, and then you can get back to doing said PT prep.
Absolutely. So yeah, I don't know how deep I can get into the PT prep. This is a standard Pro Tour, not a modern one. So in terms of relative information for this cast, not a lot, but something to touch on because it's completely engulfed my life for the past month and a half or whatever, however long since Guilds came out. I will say that PT prep is a lot of fun. It's a lot of work though. It's stressful. There's definitely pressure to it. Like there is, it is hard to stay on the train, and you got to do well, and you're competing against a lot of people also trying to do well. So yeah, I mean it's tough. I've been drafting a ton. I think this draft format's really fun if anybody wants to check it out. This is one of the most like skill intensive draft formats I've seen in a while. It really rewards good drafting, in my opinion anyway. And then on top of that, standard is awesome right now. It really is. We were talking about, earlier how people thought modern was kind of starting to decline, and it's really not. It's just that standard's so popular right now because it's new, it's fresh. The format's actually full of like fun and interesting cards. Nothing feels completely overpowered. There's a lot of like varyingly different strategies. You can like play big ramp decks. You can play like graveyard spell recursion decks. There's like storm decks. You can play, just like green black value rock type decks. There's control decks. There's like some very good white and red aggro decks. Like it's just a very diverse metagame. A lot of fun, a lot of interesting interactions going on. So kudos to Wizards for building that.
Yeah, I want to sort of like pause there for 1 second. There really hasn't been a really good standard format, I don't think, since this cast started. I mean, we're talking like we started like right when RTR rotated, pretty much.
I would say Khans of Tarkir standard was good. Khans Theros,
okay, sure.
That is very early, and that one was kind of the last bastion of it. But that standard was very good, in my opinion. That standard had it had a problem with Rhino being a little too good. Like the Abzan cards were a little too good, but for the most part, Abzan didn't dominate every week. It was more like Abzan would dominate, and then another deck would find a way to dominate, and then the Abzan deck built to beat that deck would dominate, and then another deck would dominate, and then Abzan would dominate again. But it was a fun format. There's a lot of different decks that showed up. There's a lot of stuff you could play.
Right.
And then you could also just play Siege Rhino.
Sure. But the thing that is important, I think, to take away from that is that cards that are in great standard formats end up in modern, right? Like, think about Innistrad block. Think about, Zendikar. Like, those sets form the backbone of what modern is right now.
Well, to be fair, there are cards and sets that stink that end up in modern too, like Mirrodin.
Sure.
Would you like some Ravager to go with your Arcbound Ravager?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, for every Jason Mind Sculptor, there's a Slash Panther, right? I mean, I get it.
Yeah, but your point is well taken. Like, the other thing that's interesting about this is there's a lot of powerful cards, but there's also a lot of powerful gold cards, which are interesting for modern because modern, like, gold is not, it's not relevant. It's not like, if you want to cast a card, you can cast it in modern. Like, you can find a way, right?
Right.
Like, the mana bases are good enough that it's just, like, almost trivial if you're trying to cast something. Like, I mean, we're playing a deck where, people go Serum Visions and Terminate routinely, right? Like, a format that does that. And they do that on curve routinely. Because you have fetch lands, like, you can do that. And that is just not the case in Standard. Like, I'm building decks right now that, like, I want to play these gold cards because they're so powerful, but it's just hard to do that. And, like, gold cards specifically are made more powerful for their mana cost because the casting cost is difficult, right? So it's like, like gold cards that cost 2 mana, maybe like if they were single colored would be like a 2.5 mana effect or like a 3 mana effect, but they cost 2 because they're like, hard to cast. Or even like this format has some like 4 pip gold cards, like blue, red, or like, green, white. And like those cards, those cards specifically have the effect of cards that are like, 6 mana spells sometimes, but they're just super hard to cast. So like, they could find their way into modern. And honestly, I'm seeing that where it's like, I tried Crackling Drake, which is blue, red, in Blue Moon, and that card is way better than 4 mana. Like, if I was playing, like, you would never get a card that good for blue and 3, right? It just is not even close to reasonable. But it's, like, trivially easy to cast in modern because you can build the mana bases to do that. And I think the card is, like, powerful enough to see play. Like, I don't know that it gets all the way there, but I mean, we're already seeing this with, like, Assassin's Trophy. Like, Assassin's Trophy would be way too good at black and 1, but it's, definitely modern playable at black-green.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess my point is, if modern is slowing down a little bit where you are, like, that's, 1, it is temporary, and 2, like, that is a good thing because it means that the standard is enjoyable enough, and that usually means of a high enough power level that those cards will break through at some point, like, or at least some number of them. So I would be much less, like, I would not have bought a deck in like Kaladesh Standard because it just wasn't, like, for the long term, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to really use those cards. And I know that's not a concern for everybody. It's a concern for me. But that's my habit. I would absolutely and will absolutely build probably multiple decks for this standard because I already have a lot of them. But I mean, Arclight Phoenix, Risk Factor, Risk Factor single-handedly brought back Fiery Temper, and that is one of my favorite cards of all time. So, just having cards that are good, and then you also get to play like some of those fringe cards that are like maybe not quite good enough for modern. Like, as much as I love Swarm Guildmage, like, I know that it's not good enough. Like, intellectually, I understand that. But I would definitely build a deck that played Swarm Guildmage in Standard and like not feel bad about it.
No, that's fair. But yeah, anyway, back to the PT prep update.
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can't really give you guys like my list and stuff right now. I do plan, to release like what I'm playing, what I figured out, that kind of stuff on Turn 1 Wild Nikado next week if you want to check that out. But, for now, just suffice it to say, I'm playing Standard. I found a deck I like. I've been testing it quite a bit. Been drafting a lot. And really hope to do well at this PT. Hope to stay on the train so that I can get to the next Modern Pro Tour. That's the goal. Is to hopefully win enough to show up the Modern one.
I believe in you. Not sarcastically.
I think there's a chance that Cleveland, which is the next Pro Tour, is Modern, because the PPTQ season for it was Modern. So I think that, there's a realistic chance that it's Modern, and I'm hoping that, I think I just have to 11-5 to go to it. So okay. Hopefully we can make that happen and then go to that PT.
All right. Nice. Oh, listener questions. Okay, so we actually had a ton of questions. I had to sort of cherry pick them down. So one of the questions that we got from a user on Twitter was, is Grixis Death Shadow, I think the phrasing that they used was, is Grixis Death Shadow good? Grixis
Death Shadow is good right now. Shout out to Brandon Dalloway, one of the premier GDS players out there. He just posted a list. Go check him out on Twitter. He just posted a list that he's been having a lot of success with, and I do think Shadow's good right now.
Yeah, no, I think that it is. Somebody, I don't remember who it was. Somebody posted on Twitter. They were like, Grixis Death Shadow is like a legacy deck in Modern, in the sense that it just it has all the stuff. Like you can do everything. But also the clock is fast enough that you're just like, yup, here you go. 14 ya. Like just Temur Battle Rage out of nowhere. So I really like Grixis Death Shadow. I think that it is very playable, and if you have the cards for it, you should definitely play it.
Yep, I'm a fan.
One of my friends was giving me a hard time about Disinformation Campaign. Disinformation Campaign is dope. I will have no bad talk about it at all, and it is great. Yeah, it is definitely one of my favorite archetypes to draft in Guild Limited. Sure. It's very good. Someone asked, what do you look at when deciding to buy into a new deck if you own almost none of the cards for it? Oh, man. This is something we have covered before. But so the first thing I would do if I'm looking to do this, the very first thing is I would find a way to rent the cards on Magic Online or borrow them for, to play a league, something like that. Or if that is not an option, I would look to borrow it in paper. It's not that hard to you want to test out Tron, go to your local game store and be like, hey, guy who plays Tron, can I, switch decks with you this week? Do you want to play my, Living End deck or whatever deck you were playing? Yep. Whatever, Bant Coca, whatever. Do you want to play this deck so I can play Tron for a week? Try it out. Set up some sort of switch so you can test out the deck. If you can't do any of these things, I would start by picking out something that you just know you love. If you love Snapcaster decks, but you're not happy with your Snapcaster deck that you're currently playing, maybe you have blue-white control, but you don't like it. Well, maybe you want to test Shadow. You like Snapcaster decks. Shadow plays Snapcaster. It's not that hard to get some of the cards, right? There's a couple strategies here. It's tough. Obviously Modern decks are expensive, and they're going to stay expensive. It's just the reality of the situation. But, if you have all the lands, it's a lot easier too. You can kind of just build budget versions of the deck. If you already have the mana base, it's not that hard. Just having the 40 shocks and the 40 fetches goes a long way in Modern. Yep. Oh, that's another point for this standard. I always tell people to keep the rare land cycles. Obviously, since the rare land cycle of this standard is the backbone of Modern, that goes double for this. Yeah, you should keep these ones for sure. And then, the other thing to do is you can just proxy a deck. If you think you're going to like Amulet Titan, go ahead and proxy it up on the back of some basic lands and, play some test games with it.
I definitely don't think you're going to get enough from some test games to know that you're going to love the deck, but you can definitely tell if you'll hate it. Like,
sure,
that is not impossible. I mean, maybe you'll be wrong, but it's like that is a tool you have, I guess. So, I would start with, actively finding a way to borrow it, rent it, do some sort of, test run. That's where I would start. Then I would go to build a budget version or proxy, something like that.
Yep. So like lands first is always what I tell people, and I think that's true. I would look also at just sort of archetypes in general. So like I recently bit the bullet and bought a set of chalices, and it is because there was more than one chalice deck that I was looking at. So I was like, okay. And chalice was the only thing that was keeping me from playing those decks. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna absorb this cost. It will open 3 decks for me that I think I would enjoy. And I had spent time playing them on Magic Online, and I was like, okay, this is good enough. These are powerful enough. These do things that I think are interesting. So I'm going to buy these chalices. And that was the most expensive thing, because chalices are expensive. So I guess don't buy all the cheap stuff first and then still not be able to play the deck because you're missing the expensive linchpin. Maybe put it in the middle. Kind of get the cheap stuff, then get the expensive stuff, then get the rest of the cheap stuff. It's just mentally it feels better. Someone hilariously asked me about the sideboard for Storm, and all I know is that the answer is not to play Ignite Memories, because it is not 2012. Seething Song is not legal, and I just, even the little bit that I know about Storm, I cannot imagine that is the best choice.
I would not play Ignite Memories.
And you know what? If we're going to play Storm from 2012, you know what their old board plan was? 4 Through the Breach, 4 Emrakul.
Yeah, again, we're not doing that. Cards I am interested in trying out in Storm, Experimental Frenzy and what's the blue one? Precognition Field are both interesting. I do like Firemind's Research. I think that is interesting. It may not be good enough, but I think that's interesting.
It's like a bad Pyromancer's Ascension.
Yep. I semi like Arclight Phoenix is somewhat interesting. It's probably not good enough, but it is somewhat interesting.
Yeah, it's weird because it doesn't it wouldn't trigger off the copies.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not good enough. But also, Crackling Drake is not something you should 100% ignore in Storm.
I could see that. You know what? I could see that because people are likely to bring in Graveyard Hate against you, and it just completely ignores that.
Exactly. Like, they play a Rest in Peace, you play a Crackling Drake, you can kill them next turn in Storm, I promise.
Right.
You just, Grape Shot them for, 6 or 7, and then, 12 them with your Crackling Drake, because you cast a bunch of cantrips and rituals and stuff.
Yeah. Yep. So there you go. There's your answer. Play Crackling Drakes. Card's great.
Big fan of it.
Indeed. Same. Before we get to the Spice Rack, you can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/turn1Thoughtseize, all spelled out. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at @1Thoughtseize. Zach is at A22EN. You can watch a stream at twitch.tv/T1Thoughtseize, sponsored by our friends at Card Hoarder. You can see our YouTube videos at youtube.com/turn1Thoughtseize, all spelled out. You can read my columns at blog.cardkingdom.com. You can become a member of the Thoughtseize Cabal at patreon.com/turn1Thoughtseize, all spelled out. And you can see all of our content on turn1Thoughtseize.com. The Spice Rack card for this week, which I'm 10% sure is a repeat, but I don't care, is Leave to Chance. One of the Scapeshift piles that I am working on is a Naya version, and I posted a picture on Twitter of one of my test games, and the test game The picture was me with 2 lands and a Rift Sweeper, and my Storm opponent with a Baral, a Goblin Electromancer, and no lands. And a number of people, rightly, were like, what is even happening here? And the answer is that Leave to Chance is 1 and a white for an instant. It's one of the Aftermath cards from Hour of Devastation. So it's the front side is 1 and a white instant. Return any number of target permanents you own to your hand. And then the back side is Chance, 3 and a red, sorcery, Aftermath. Discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards. So a bunch of sort of interesting things that you can do with this in general that I have not yet explored. The thing that I am exploring is that in conjunction with Thoughts of Ruin, modern staple, 2 red, each player sacrifices a land for each card in your hand. When you, in the Scapeshift shell, you're just like playing a lot of lands. So once you get to 6 lands, you can tap all your lands for mana, cast Leave, pick them all up, and then with the 4 mana that's floating, you cast Thoughts of Ruin, and your opponent has to sacrifice all their lands. And that is a pretty good way, it turns out, to beat people, is if they cannot cast any spells.
I agree. That works to be cool.
So you still have like Conley Heart Expedition and Steve and Azusa. So like while your opponent is like trying to just play the game, you get to just play your lands back out. And then if you get to 7 lands, you can just like Scapeshift kill you. One of the other things that I'm testing right now for backup or like for plan B originally was Conflagrate, and it just like didn't work out right. So I put Seismic Assault in there, and that's another thing. Like you can very easily just like pick up 6 lands and then 12 somebody to the face. The backside is also like fringe relevant because sometimes you just need to draw a specific thing, and you're like, okay, 4 mana, dump 4, draw 3, or dump 4, draw 4.
Yeah, the backside does seem very good with Life from the Loam.
Yeah, right, and then you have Life from the Loam, like you have the whole thing. So I believe there is a deck there. I had talked about Thoughts of Ruin when I updated the old Thoughtseize deck, which was basically like an Assault Loam deck that was playing like Rumbling Slum, which is hilarious. So like I thought there was potential there, and then this card came out, and I was like, oh man, like what's better than Armageddon is like build your own Ajani Ultimate, and then run away with the game. So Leave to Chance is certainly like the bulkiest of bulk rares. I'm sure you could find them for very few pennies, but just an interesting card that has a lot of potential play, like fit both fair and unfair. So grab some Leave to Chances and see what you can come up with. Stay tuned. Now that I'm off the leash of like having to play a serious deck all the time, I have like 10 brews that are like going full steam now. So expect that next week. British Emma is coming on the stream starting back up, regular schedule, or like weekly again, like it was before. We had like a crazy couple of months. It's like all kinds of stuff going on for both of us, so kind of get back to the regular schedule. But she's coming back, and we're gonna do some crazy nonsense, so stay tuned for that as well. But that's all we have for this week, and we will catch up with you later.
Love you guys.